What's up, everybody? Next round. And this episode, we're really going to go into how people talk about like the power of the now, and like in this moment you can create anything that you want. And like it's not exactly true. It's not exactly true, because here's an extreme example, but right now, could you grow wings and go fly? Or could you make the tree outside your window just disappear? No, it's like we have to be honest about the fact that we're dealing in reality, okay? But my goal for this episode is to show you a way where you can learn to deal with your reality like it is today, and how you can work with what's here as the very building blocks so that you can get to the next outcome, the next goal that you have. If you've been listening so far, I mean, everything that we're talking about here is about having real purpose, to not just make your life good, but like really accumulate a lot of wealth, but a lot of influence. First for yourself, then your family and your community, but then also the world. Because we got to deal with the reality of the situation. Is we don't just live in this infinite playground where anything is possible at any given moment. Exactly. There's some truth to that. And when the gurus and the people talk about like instant manifestation and stuff, it's like, it was explained to me really well one time. I heard this from a friend and then actually heard the original explanation of it. But it's like, you're not necessarily doing one thing wrong right now. There's 1,000 things that you're doing a little bit off. And all of those things accumulate to you having a life where you're not exactly where you want to be, or you're where you are, but you know that there's a lot more you can do. It's this constant game of like little shifts, little corrections, things like that, okay? But I'm gonna get into that in a moment. But I want to highlight this so you can really see, what does this look like to really redesign your life and really calibrate it to the best possible life you can have, where it's also verifiable by others and others experience that benefit too, which is great, right? Is that literally the best thing that everyone actually wants, is for everyone to be thriving? Here's how we get there. So this first came to me a couple weeks ago. I was chatting with a couple guys that I usually chat with. One of them was sharing a story about how he had a really long day, and he had come home and he like had a headache and was just kind of exhausted. But he has kids, and his kids, like to hang out with him at night and read a bedtime story, that kind of thing, which is, it's cool. But he just prefaced it to his kids. He's like, hey, look, like I've had a very long day. I have a headache. Like, so just, I'm letting you know, I would really prefer if, we didn't stay up really late tonight, and if I could get some sleep so I can support my body. So I'm just letting you guys know that. And his kids are, well, he's got 3 kids, but the 2 he was talking to in particular are 4 and 6 years old. But his kids are very effective, like beyond any 4 and 6-year-old that I've seen elsewhere. And that's done intentionally, and that'll be future episodes. We can go into that. But it was like these moments in our lives where you will know you're not in your best state. Maybe you have a headache, long day, whatever, and things accumulate. And you can either just have that happen and be like, I'll just power through and whatever, and then you're kind of rolling the dice, because then sometimes you'll really harm yourself and really sabotage yourself. Or you can just plan ahead and be honest about the fact of where you're at. That's a huge part of what we're going to get into here, is being really honest about where you're at and where you want to be, and then being able to communicate effectively with people around you of how to navigate these situations. So he had that conversation with his kids, and it's pretty cool. Like, they ended up that evening, his kids understood, and they had really cool conversation, and he was able to be there with his kids, but also his kids were able to start to learn this lesson of like empathy and compassion, and realizing that the adults around them aren't always going to be able or willing to like play full out with the kids. And that's really cool when you can engineer those types of relationships with people around you. So everyone has like a heightened awareness. It's like situational awareness, where you're able to talk at that level, operate at that level, and then you can create these relationships where what happens from it is actually best for everyone involved, and everyone can support each other equally. So I'm sharing that because that planted a seed for me a couple weeks ago. And then, a week ago, I'd done a pretty intense workout, and I guess I didn't stretch enough. I've never really had injuries. Like, to me, it's very abnormal to have injuries, but I had pulled my LCL in the outside of my knee, and I didn't think much of it. But then I kept like going on walks every morning. I go on a run, and I like kept getting more and more until one day I was like limping, and my wife's like, "Hey, you gotta slow down, buddy. Like, what's going on?" I'm like, yeah, okay, I gotta slow down. So, and just in the context of like supporting my knee, right, supporting my body, because if you don't support your body, what happens? It's like you're injuring yourself, and by the time you're 60, you're worn down. So I was willing to hear her out. And it was cool though, because we have our son, Aristotle. And seriously, parenting, doing it right with parenting, it is the ultimate self-development. Because I'm now noticing how I respond to the stressors in my life, such as my knee is now hurting. That affects what I do, because I go up and down the stairs 10 times a day, and I go bring water to our chickens that are out in the field, and there's snow on the ground outside. Like, I'm doing a lot of stuff throughout the day, so I have to be very intentional about it. And it was really cool, because in those moments of me realizing like, okay, I have to slow down, and my knee was actually like straight up starting to hurt. I was watching how my son was paying attention to me. This might seem so subtle to some of you that you might be like, that doesn't matter. But actually it does, because the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And instead of me then going into like okay, this is my situation, poor me, gosh dang, I'm pissed, going into blaming my past self of being like, why didn't I just slow down and stretch and all that? Instead of doing any of that, I just took a breath. I was like, okay, cool, this is what I'm dealing with. And then I just went right back to being my full self there. And I was like, carrying my son around because my wife was making dinner, and I like walk with him around the room. He likes that. And, I had to like pay attention to my knee, but it was like in those moments, I was very intentional of where I was directing my focus. And I'm sharing all of this because here's a really important seed that I'm going to plant is we got to be brutally honest. Not enough people are talking about this or even aware of this. Got to be brutally honest about what we have created already in our lives. This is really important, because when we think, in any moment I can just make a decision and anything could happen, you're not being self-honest about the fact that we live in reality. There's like space, time, and different rules to what's going on. And so if in that moment I was like, no, I'm totally healed and this is good and I'm just totally fine. But if I'm not like a master of affecting my body and healing my body like some grandmaster from the Far East, I'm just going to hurt myself more, and I'm going to be in delusion. And who even knows how much of that stuff is true? But I have had some pretty cool stuff happen where like I had this Chinese grandmaster like boil water in front of me with his hands. That was pretty gnarly out in LA. But I don't have those skills. And that guy, he couldn't just make that decision. He had to practice that for 60 years and all of that. And so this is the first real point is, here's 3 words that make sense of how we create our reality. Is it create your reality? No. It's created, creator, creation. This is something to really meditate on, really look at, and really seek for wisdom within. Because first, we got to deal with the fact of what we've created. What have we created? Not just in our lifetime, but like collectively, what have we created? We've created a world and a reality where like there's potential world wars. Still like kids suffering every day, like adults suffering, and people are not educated. Not everyone has access to the internet, and the internet is being censored and all sorts of stuff. That's what we've created. So we got to be honest about that. So like for myself or for my friend who had the headache and he was like, then working with his kids, that's now the leap from going from created to creator, because we are creators. We got to also be brutally honest about that. It's like people go into one or the other camp, like, no, we have no free will, or, oh, we have total free will. It's like, it's like a blend, and it's so much more than that. So first is created. What have we created in our lives? Next is then being a creator. You can create with your actions, with your words, with how you show up, all of that. You are creating in every moment based on what was created before. Your body was created. Your mind was created. Your programming was created. Your feelings were created. All of it was created based on previous, which was also then based on the same cycle. So there's created, creator, and then creation. So the created plus the creator creates the creation. And then that creation at a future point in time will then be the created, which then you can create on top of. And then that creates more of the creation. And it's this like virtuous cycle that keeps going upward. But here's the thing. A lot of people then go into, again, la la land, and they're like, oh, great, yeah, we are creating, and we're amazing. And it's like, what are you basing that off of? Because last I checked, there's like banks collapsing, and like kids are at an all-time low level in terms of reading. I mean, compared to since we ever started schools and things. Like it's getting pretty gnarly out there. And how does this relate to you is I'm going to encourage you to look at, there's two main things that people love, people focus on all the time. And it's sex and money, sex and money. Sex, not just sex itself, even though that's a huge thing that many people focus on a lot. But it's also having that intimate relationship and procreation, and therefore family. So that's what I mean by sex. And if you look in Hollywood, it's everywhere. Sex and money. Just look at like any of the rap music or any of the movies. It's in all the movies. It influences all of it. Then the other one is money, being able to provide, have work, career. And so with that, you could look at, what have I created so far with my situation? Let's say with my relationship or with my money situation. What has been created? It's what you have here right now. But now you're a creator. So you get to make decisions. But here's the thing. You're making decisions and you're creating within a box. Your box is what is your programming, your vocabulary, and all that. Now you do have within you life itself. This extremely powerful force that is you at the deepest level. And at the same time, within it, into the very fabric of your being and your body, you have a mind, and your mind has not effectively been programmed. None of ours has. Some more than others. Some more than others. Yet, that's a really, really important part, is that you're going to create, and you're going to say, I'm creating my desires, and they're from my heart. And you'll put all this language to it. But in reality, all of your desires came from what was programmed into you primarily in your childhood. You got to be brutally honest about this. Why do you want, like, picture the ideal partner that you have. Where did that come from? It came from programming. A lot of it from the media, also from the adults you saw when you were a kid. And your mind is this amazing device that can put together all sorts of images. It's like an AI of sorts. It actually is. And it puts it all together, and then it spits out this amazing image. Or a movie. Some people see in images, some people see in movies. And that is the created. When I say earlier, when we were talking about being what's created, that is what has been created in you as you're programming in the flesh of your body, and it's creating this image in your mind. The creator is not just now in your mind. The creator is you directing yourself in your mind and your physical activity to now build in the real world. And then that affects creation itself. Pretty cool. So if you're now going into like a judgment of this or anything like that, you're missing the point. Is that when you can take full self-responsibility of this, you're clear on your purpose, what you're here to do, why you're here to do it. You're clear on the reality that we have, what we have created collectively, and what do we now want to create, which is a way better world. This is actually one of the most empowering things you could ever hear and understand, is you take this on now for yourself. Now, can you see how if you become a clear creator and your creation is more and more empowering and it starts compounding and you're now sharing the right things with people and you're connecting and you're connected with other people who also have purpose and want to see a better reality. And all of that's coming together. And you're doing the process, learning how to forgive yourself, learning how to let go of the past, learning how to be focused, correct yourself. And at every moment, you can do the very best thing. Now imagine that, how that starts to accumulate. Then that becomes like when your kids grow up. The created that they're dealing with is going to be different. They're going to have a lot more to work with. So that they, as creators, can influence creation. So I noticed this with myself, especially in the small moments, like when I had injured my knee and I'm hanging out with my son, I'm walking him around, and instead of me then going into my mind and being like, dang it, and next week I don't want to go on a run, and you go all spinning out of control in your mind to keep creating the same situation, and then it actually gets even worse because there's like a negative compound effect. Instead, in those moments, you can just breathe, be there, be present, and realize every single thing you do counts up. You're either in every moment accumulating, like breath by breath, you're accumulating power for you as life to go direct yourself in your purpose, create the best reality, or you're going to accumulate more in your mind and your ego, and then it's like your computer just downloading all these files and stuff from the internet of just straight like garbage and chaos. And then you're walking around wondering like why your mind is so crazy and why you can't even pay attention, on something that's really important. So this is that process. And this is my challenge to you. It's my invitation to you to look at how do we now, actually first, even before how, it's why. Why would it make sense to take this on? Why would it make sense to take on the fact that we're dealing with reality and we are creators in it? Therefore, we can change it and make it way better. Why does that matter? Why is that important? Then what are you going to do with that? Because this is the ultimate place for us to really see who we are. Being on earth, like having this opportunity of life, gets to show you who you are. And it's pretty cool because once you really get the hang of this and you align yourself with life itself, you realize that life has your back. Not in some, fancy, mystical way of, oh, this worked out for me and I got a parking spot at Target. Nah, bigger than parking spots. But it's you start to realize that there's a spark of life within every single person. And as you align yourself with life, the life within others gets sparked even more. That's really cool. But you have to keep going, and it comes down to those little moments where you want to go back into the old pattern. Like my friend who had the headache, where he could have just been like, screw it, and just like been in a mood or something, or like had some sort of negative impact on his kids with that. But instead, he just directed the situation. He pre-handled it. It's like what I did with my son. If you don't have a kid, look at this in your relationships, in your business, and how you show up. Are you directing it? Do you have the intention to direct it? Or are you just going with the flow? Because if you're just going with the flow and just going with what feels good and chasing after like your fulfillment, like a lot of people out there are like, yeah, I'm going to design my lifestyle by design so I feel fulfilled. I'm going to help other people find their passion. It's like, that sounds really good. And I see why people like click on that and buy that stuff. But where does your idea of fulfillment come from? What are the programs within you that's triggering dopamine when that happens? I'm not saying you can't be fulfilled, but is it real fulfillment or is it counterfeit fulfillment? Because the counterfeit fulfillment would be like, yeah, I'm going to live my dream life and, I'm just going to like help people and like, I might move to like Thailand so my US dollar can like go a bit further and I'll just live like a king. Missing the fact that there's still people who have to work at that resort in Thailand who have to work for like 12 hours a day just to put food on their table. So you're not being honest about what real fulfillment is. Real fulfillment is us changing the system so that we can have a money system that actually gives to everybody what they need at a base level. And if people want to go above and beyond, great. That's why we keep capitalism. but it's a evolved form of it where we can make sure that people don't have to work 12 hours a day to make minimum wage and then get automated by a robot, because that's coming for everybody in the next 4 or 5 years. And so let's zoom out for a second. Okay, you get a chance to now like look at yourself and where you want to be and really look at like fulfillment and all that stuff. But now let's zoom out. Let's look at where the world's headed. As a collective, we have created a mess. We've created AI as well. That's now teaching itself. If you haven't been watching this, the stuff with AGI, they now have the AI, like the GPT-4 and things like that are now giving commands to the machines that print hardware. So the software is now influencing the hardware creation so that the hardware becomes more effective for the software. And it's turning into this, if we're not careful, it'll be a runaway train. But remember, created, creator, creation. We have created this. But now as creators, a lot of us have created genius kids that are going to keep getting smarter and smarter. So they have nothing to fear where the world's headed. And that's on us to also instill within us and the people around us the principles to make sure that what we're creating and the creation that we leave behind is the greatest it could possibly be. And that's what this is all about. All right. So if you got some benefit from this, please like, share, leave a comment. If you have topics that you want me to go into in future episodes, let me know. I have a general plan of where this is going, but it's as interactive as it can be through YouTube and through podcasting channels and everything. All right. So thanks for tuning in. Go out there today and really, really look at those little moments of change. Because in those little moments, you make a little different decision. That's where you can now step through as a creator and really start to make that difference. All right. So talk soon. See you.